Hello everyone, and welcome to the World of Tanks Update 1.24.1 Common Test Server. So, in this video, I'm going to do something I haven't done in a long time, which is show you what is going to come in the next update of World of Tanks. So there's quite a few things that are actually going to happen in this one. I'm going to go through the website page, as you can see here, let you know what's coming, give you my take on a few things, and I'm going to throw in a few clips and a few screenshots that I've gathered from actually playing on the Common Test server, as well as a few screenshots and whatnot the Wargaming don't supply on their website of some of the upcoming vehicles, like some that have been added to this test server but aren't available for the average player such as me and you to play. And at the end of the video, I also want to point out something that I think Wargaming is doing that's a little bit sneaky. So first things first, let's just take a quick peek, as you may have read already, at what there is here coming in the next update. So we have brand new Polish tank destroyers. They have a very unique characteristic. We'll get to that in just a second. There's 6 of them. We have vehicle rebalancing. There's 4 vehicles getting a rebalance, and I think that it's, for the most part, a very needed balance. We have map reworking. We'll show you those in the bottom, or down here a little bit. Update on crews. I think these crew changes they're making are absolutely perfect. We need them. They are the right direction. It's not like a crew 2.0 thing, if you remember that whole debacle a couple years ago. Postmortem mode, so it's like a kill camera. That's actually kind of neat. I've seen how it works a couple times. I think you'll find it quite interesting as well. Onslaught stuff. To be honest, Onslaught isn't something that I've ever gotten into. I'm going to more or less skip over that because I don't have anything that I can add to that you won't be able to figure out yourselves if you have any interest in Onslaught. Improvements to Steel Hunter, they're not very substantial, but we'll go over them anyway. Tour of Duty, again, that's kind of a clan thing. We'll go over them very briefly as well, but there's not a whole lot there that has changed. And of course, it is a test server. It's a test server for a reason. Things tend to change between the test server and actually being released on the regular live server, whatever you want to call it. Whether that be features be removed, features be changed, whatever. So first things first, let's look at the brand new Polish tank destroyers. And I have some better clips here than they supplied that I will provide to you as well as we go on. So as I said, there's 6 tank destroyers. So that's tiers 5 through 10. Having played them a little bit, they seem interesting. I've only put the tier 10 to be honest, and I'm not sure yet if it's going to be a really good tank or a really bad tank. I'll post a video in the near future, or at the same time as this, one or the other, that has some clips of me playing the new vehicle, and you can kind of get a good idea for yourself as to if it's any good or not. So anyway, back on track here. We have the tier 5, the SDP-40. I won't try to say all these tanks' full names because I'm going to absolutely slaughter the pronunciation of them. Then we have the Tier 6 SDP-44, the Tier 7 SDP-57, and then the Tier 8 SDP-58, the Tier 9 SDP-60, and the Tier 10 NC-70, being the one that I have actually played around with a little bit. So these have a very unique mechanic, and if you don't know what this mechanic is already, in a nutshell, the closer you are to the enemy vehicle that you're shooting at, the more damage it will do. The farther you are, the less damage it will do. From what I've seen playing this tank, honestly, if you're up close and personal, less than 50 meters of range, because that's when it does the most damage possible, this thing is going to be quite a bit of a pretty good beast. It's going to do a lot of damage. I mean, 800 damage at 50 meters is substantial, but if you're going to be far away, it does have a really high shell velocity, the highest in the game with those premium rounds, but when it's only going to be doing something like 300 damage when you're at a long range, it's a really low DPM. Also, from what I've seen, I think that the gun characteristics, the gun handling, it doesn't feel like you're firing an 800 damage shell everywhere. It's not, massive bloom, terrible aim time. It's actually feeling more like a 400 or 500 alpha damage gun, which is kind of nice. And that could be what makes it really overpowered, especially if you're at a closer range at around 50 meters or so. All right, moving on to vehicle rebalancing. So the 4 vehicles that are being rebalanced are the Panzerkampfwagen 7, the AMX Foch 50B, the Super Conqueror, and the Minotauro. So those vehicles, along with some of the counterparts for those vehicles in the tech tree, are going to be rebalanced, and I think it is absolutely needed, very much so. So if we go look at the dedicated article, we can see details on which characteristics of these vehicles are actually being modified. So the Panzerkampfwagen 7, it's going to be getting slightly better armor on its turret, and its gun accuracy and aiming times are also going to be improved. And now looking at the AMX 50 Foch B, it's going to have its aiming time reduced, its dispersion after firing reduced, and enhanced stabilization during movement and hull traverse. And it's also going to have its maximum reverse speed and specific power increased. And if you want to pause here, you can see below exactly what is going to be changed statistically. I'll let you pause the video if you want to take a closer look at that. The surrounding vehicles. So, of course, below the Foch, we have the Tier 9 and the Tier 8 equivalents. They are also getting themselves some slight improvements as well, which is excellent. Now, the Super Conqueror, it is getting a little bit of a nerf, which people may be upset about that. I think some people that have the vehicle are absolutely going to be upset about that. But let's be honest here. It needs it. It needs a bit of a nerf. So it's going to have its DPM lowered, and as a result, its reload speed. And it's also going to have some of its HP removed, so it's going to have less hit points. Next up, we have the Minotauro. This one's almost not really a nerf, but more of a rebalance. So it's going to have its HP pool reduced, and its heat shell velocity modified. And it's also going to have its specific power and chassis traverse speed slightly adjusted. And it's actually going to make it basically less armored, but a little bit more nimble, which is alright. And let's look at the Super Conqueror here. You can see its overall modified stats, and we'll look at the same for the Minotauro. And again, feel free to pause the video if you want to take a closer look. Once again, the Tier 9 and Tier 8 equivalent for the Minotauro are going to also have a little bit of an adjustment in a very similar manner. Moving on now, we're going to look at the map balancing rework. So some of these maps are going to be modified. Mountain Pass, I agree with these changes. I agree with pretty much all the changes that they have made to these maps. So you can see on the left here is the before, on the right here is the after, what's going to look like after this update. So looking at it before, it'll look quite familiar. You know, you've got all these bushes, all these trees around, lots of places for things to hide. You've got this big hill over here, and you look in the back here on the hill. It's hard to see from this angle, I know. But you'll see some changes here when I swipe this over. And you can see most of these bushes are gone. It's going to make it a little more difficult for artillery or any sneaky tank destroyers to hide. This whole hill is gone. There's some little other rocks in their place. It's going to make it a lot different if you want to sneak up onto this enemy base. There's no more sitting in this enemy base, not as much anyway, sitting in this base and trying to capture it with things that you can't see shooting at you, which I think is alright, because it's always been pretty scary to camp this one, and it had that advantage over the base on the enemy, or in the opposite team. So looking at this again, swiping back and forth, you can even see on top of that hill back there where people like to camp sometimes, there is some minor changes going on up there as well. Very interesting. And again, Mountain Pass. This other approach, this would be the glacier lower path, whatever you want to call it, before on the left once again. And there wasn't much of a line of sight going through here, so there's the fairly new tank destroyer sitting spot back there that wasn't really used from what I've seen. It is now going to perhaps be a little bit better, because look at how much this opens up. That is a huge amount, like a huge line of sight right from back in that point up to here. There'll be a pretty decent hull down position that some heavily armored turreted tanks can sit in. It'll really change the fight on this flank a lot, like a lot, I think. My only concern is that now if you are in a bad situation on this flank and you want to get out of there and retreat, it's going to make that even more difficult. We'll see how that plays out. Really, I'll have to play it a few times to see and be in those situations. Karelia. So, Karelia. This spot, they are adding in a better spot for tank destroyers to sit and camp, which I never thought, okay, it needs that or it doesn't need that. So we'll see what happens with that one. Again, we'll have to play the map and really see how it feels. And then they're also modifying on Karelia again a few bush locations, but majorly just that rock in the middle there, providing a little bit less cover in that position. Rather interesting. Mines. These changes on mines, I think, are absolutely required, because there's been so many situations where I've had enemy vehicles sit in those bushes and just be able to wreak havoc on me and lock down a good portion of the team. And that is way more power than one vehicle should be able to do on a battle. So before, we have bushes here, a couple little changes here and there, but nothing else too substantial. And try not to look at that house in the middle. That's really not the focal point, the part that makes a difference. Look at the bush positions. They're pretty subtle changes, but the removing of most of those bushes is going to change how this area is played a lot. And then same thing again here, before on the left, after on the right. A lot of these bushes are being moved. Really, that's not as huge of a change as some of the others would be. And then El Haluf removed a bush in the C2 square. And Outpost, a few little changes as well, just more or less moving bushes around, maybe adjusting the terrain elevation a little bit just to open up or close off some options. In this update, crews are getting a fairly substantial change. It won't affect the outcome of battles really at all or how your vehicle feels too much, but it's going to get rid of a bit of the early nuisance that crews would sometimes give. Firstly, let's look at the barracks. There's a new button that'll let you remove all crew members with less than 100% XP for their first perk, which is great. Someone like me, I have a mess of a barracks. As it is now, if I want to clean out my barracks, I have to press hundreds of buttons in order to get rid of all the crew members I don't need. I'm not going to have to do that anymore, and even better, you'll receive compensation for their XP in the form of crew books. So now, instead of just getting rid of those crew members and having them thrown in the trash, I'll get some crew books in return. That's going to be very handy. I'm absolutely going to use that. Something that I've wanted to do in my barracks for a long time that I have not been able to. And I have even thought about looking for a mod that might be able to do something similar. But now I won't need to, and I'll get some crew books out of it, which will help any of my other crews that I actually use and care about. Additionally, they're renaming major qualification level to crew efficiency. Okay. Implementing a penalty to perk efficiency for free or credit retraining operations, which will gradually decrease as you gain XP. I had to read that about 10 times before I figured out what it actually meant, because for some reason it's really confusing. What I gathered is that that actually means that instead of having your crew be reduced down to a lower percentage of training when you want to retrain their skills, it's going to instead just decrease the effect that your perks have. They're also providing retraining bonuses for newcomers and enabling you to change your tanker's qualification through the credit retraining operation. So now you can retrain with credits and change your qualification. So turn your commander into a driver or whatever you need to do. That's kind of nice. And it also looks like there's going to be more details of the crew changes coming soon, so keep your eyes out for that kind of article. Post-mortem mode, that is something that I'm absolutely liking too. That's, a kill cam. And it's also saying that it's still a bit of a work in progress, so they're going to implement it, but it's not going to necessarily be there in all battle types, especially those with random events. I'll show you a clip here of what this post-mortem mode looks like, because a picture or a video is worth 1,000 words, and words are hard. English is difficult. So it does show you a pretty good clip of what exactly killed your vehicle, where the shell came from, where you got penetrated. That's the part I like the most. You can see where you got penetrated. And I think that could help too, because you get a better idea of where you've been shot, where your weak spots are, what not to do in the future. Onslaught. I am not huge on Onslaught. It's starting in update 1.24.1. As soon as it goes live, feel free to pause and read all this if you have an interest in it. We're going to skip right past it. And Steel Hunter, just a few changes for Steel Hunter. It's going to have enhanced platoon functionality, making it easier to find a random platoon mate, and you'll be able to create a platoon while you're in the battle, as well as having some voice-activated communication features, which, yeah, I think that most sane people disable that in the game, because the in-game chat, from what I remember, is absolutely garbage, and the sound quality is jarring. Tour of Duty is getting some rework. There's going to be some daily missions that can be completed by people in your clan. They're going to be called tour missions. There's going to be 3 missions in total. These missions will be doable every single day. They had to be done in a certain order, and team up for the last 2 missions is required. So you have to be in a platoon or detachment with a clanmate in order to complete those last 2 missions. And you also have to manually collect the rewards, which I think is kind of annoying. And it's also worth noting that Industrial Resource is one of your rewards, as it always has been, and Points of Duty, which are a new clan currency. Now, I don't know exactly what Points of Duty are going to give you, but it does say you can unlock regions using Points of Duty on the map and receive a reward for each region. So maybe that's going to be the sole use. And at the end of your battle journey awaits the ultimate prize, Tier 10 Italian Medium with a special 3D style as well. That's kind of neat. I wonder if that thing's going to be overpowered and extremely difficult to get. One more thing I found, scrolling all the way down to the bottom here, they've added a new Polish tech tree vehicle, which is not in the tech tree on the test server, by the way, and it's called the Hurricane. The Hurricane is a Polish Tier 10 medium tank, and it is actually a CS63 clone, so it's going to have the engine modes with the turbine engine, just like the CS63 does, and it's going to also have its own special 3D style. And I do believe it's going to be given as a reward for Onslaught. Another couple of vehicles that have been added to this test server that are only available for Super Test players to play is the SU-122V and the Object 168G. So the SU-122V is going to be a Tier 8 Russian tank destroyer. It's a premium. It's going to have the hydrodynamic suspension, and it'll look and act a lot like the already wedge-shaped sneaky tank destroyers we have in the game. And then the Object 168G is going to be a Tier 8 premium medium tank. And here's a few screenshots of that thing as well. These screenshots are courtesy of the Armored Patrol and Watt Express. I did not capture them myself, nor do I claim to have. There's one more thing, though, that I think they have hidden that is absolutely devious. And they tried to implement the same thing a few years ago, and I don't remember exactly what happened with it. They may have held off on implementing it into the game because of some backlash from the community. But here we are again, regardless. Personal reserves, if you don't recall exactly what those are, they're the boosters that you can activate before you go into battles that give you extra credits or free experience or crew experience or combat experience. And those ones that we have in the game now, they never expire. You can have them forever. So you can just add them to your collection and they never go away. Now they're adding in expirable personal reserves. So what that means is, well, it just as the name says, they're going to be giving you some that can expire. They're not going to make the ones that you already have expire. You'll be able to keep those forever. They said this functionality is not available for now, but I imagine in the semi-near future, maybe like next year even, start giving you ones that expire. So you have to use them. That way you gain less of an advantage. It encourages you to play more. It encourages you to buy a premium account or the Watt Plus. Really, I think that's kind of sneaky. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they're trying to very quietly grab some more of your money. Anyways, thanks for watching. That's going to be everything I have for you regarding the World of Tanks update in this video. I am going to release another video or two showing a more in-depth look at a couple of the other things coming in this update that I did mention in this video as well. So feel free to tune in for that. Until next time, have a good one.